We're learning more about how special counsel Jack Smith is trying to prosecute his election subversion case over former President Donald Trump, even after the Supreme Court ruled presidents have broad immunity for actions they took while in office. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar shows us the evidence a judge just made public.
Special counsel Jack Smith laying out his case that former President Trump was acting as a candidate, not a president, when he allegedly tried to subvert the results of the 2020 election. And therefore, Smith says, must stand trial for his private crimes as would any other citizen. U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan has to assess whether Trump's actions were part of his official duties or not, after the Supreme Court partially sided with Trump's argument that presidents have absolute immunity.
In the past 48 hours, there's been a major shakeup in Trump's legal team. I'm talking complete chaos here, and I'm not just saying this for drama. The situation is actually serious. Jack Smith recently released evidence that's got everyone in Trump's corner scrambling, seriously scrambling. So here's the scoop.
He's a deranged person. I call him deranged Jack Smith. This was a weaponization of government, and that's why it was released 30 days before the election. And it's nothing new in there, by the way, nothing new. They rigged the election. I didn't rig the election.
Smith, who's been piecing together this federal election interference case, just laid out some new evidence that insiders are calling seriously damaging. We're talking emails, internal memos. It's solid proof that connects Trump directly to efforts aimed at overturning the election results. Now, this isn't some vague accusation. These documents are authenticated communications between former White House aides and campaign staff. Before you think this is just another fleeting news headline, let me tell you why this instance feels different. Trump's own lawyers have had to hold an emergency meeting. Yes, an emergency. That's not your everyday occurrence. One source even told Politico, and I'm paraphrasing here, that what came to light overnight changes everything, and they're in full scramble mode to respond. They use the word scrambling. When the legal team is feeling the heat like that, you know it's serious business. I understand we've been down this road before, hearing claims of Trump's downfall time and again, but this time feels unique. It's not merely the left-leaning media spinning tales. There's a tangible shift in the air. It's honestly hard to believe how much is unfolding right now. I've been hearing a lot from conservative legal commentators lately, and they're sounding the alarm about Trump's legal troubles. Andrew McCarthy, who has been pretty fair to Trump in the past, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that if these documents hold up, Trump's team might find it nearly impossible to claim plausible deniability. Just think about that for a moment. Nearly impossible for Trump to deny involvement. And this is coming from a conservative voice on Fox News. So what is this new evidence that has everyone buzzing? It's fascinating, really. What Jack Smith has presented includes communications confirming Trump's direct involvement in attempts to overturn the election.
Smith says prove Trump was not acting as president. Like a White House staffer traveling with the defendant overheard him tell his family members that it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you still have to fight like hell.
Ellie Honeck, a CNN legal analyst who's been all over this case, mentioned that these communications tell a story that's hard to ignore. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like irrefutable and overwhelming, that's the moment to really pay attention. Now here's something that really stuck out to me. What's going on over on social media? Typically, I don't put too much weight on trends from Twitter, but the current conversations are quite revealing. Even some of Trump's loyal supporters are starting to have doubts. Hashtags like Trump trial and Jack Smith are trending. And if you take a moment to read what folks are saying, you'll see real questions bubbling up about whether his legal team is up to the challenge. When your own base starts second-guessing your lawyers, that can't be a good sign. Let's face it for a moment. Trump has been through a lot. 2 impeachments, countless investigations, civil cases, and criminal cases. The guy's like Teflon. But this situation feels different. It's federal. Jack Smith has been methodical in his approach, and the strength of the evidence we're hearing about is pretty impressive. Now, when you think politically about all this, it really raises questions about the future. Trump is in his second term and can't run again, but his grip on the Republican Party is still huge. If he takes a hit from this case, it could definitely shake things up. It's pretty wild to think about how the political scene could shift dramatically if serious consequences come into play. Recently, polls have revealed something intriguing. A growing number of GOP voters are starting to voice some doubts. It's not so much about his policies, but more about the legal troubles and whether all this is sustainable, which is a big deal. For years, Trump's base has been rock solid, completely unshakable, but now cracks are starting to appear. It's honestly hard to believe we've reached a point where folks are having second thoughts after all this time. Now, the reason this story is so significant goes beyond just Trump himself. It's what happens next that really matters. If Jack Smith's evidence proves to be as strong as everyone is saying, we might be looking at a potential conviction. Imagine that. A sitting president being convicted of federal crimes tied to election interference. Just think of the implications for our country, for democracy, and future elections. On the flip side, Trump's legal team is clearly in a panic. I mean, there was that emergency meeting I mentioned earlier, and I've heard they're completely changing their game plan. Everything they had mapped out is now tossed aside, and they're starting fresh because whatever Jack Smith presented totally caught them off guard. One legal analyst put it pretty succinctly, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they said Trump's defense relied on the lack of direct evidence, that it was all circumstantial, and that proving intent was nearly impossible. But if these new communications demonstrate direct involvement, like Trump explicitly directing actions to overturn the election, then that whole defense crumbles. So where does this leave us? The coming weeks are going to be crucial. We'll see how Trump's team adapts, what additional evidence Jack Smith might bring to the table, and if public opinion keeps shifting. That's the real wild card here. Trump has managed to weather so many storms because his base has stuck by him. But if that starts to change, if more Republicans begin to question things, then everything changes. And I want to emphasize, this isn't about whether you're a Trump supporter or not. It's about the evidence and what actually happened. If the proof shows that laws were violated, that election interference took place, then that's something we all need to pay attention to. It's honestly hard to believe we're in a situation where this is even a topic for discussion. But here we are, diving into something much deeper than just the usual Trump legal dramas or the latest investigation. The real story is so much bigger than that. Let's break it down. Jack Smith is not your average prosecutor. He's got this methodical approach, really patient, and he doesn't make a move unless he's completely sure of what he's doing. So when he tosses out new evidence and shakes things up in Trump's legal camp, you can bet he's holding on to something substantial, something that would stand up in court. Most people don't get this, but in criminal cases, especially the high-profile ones like this, prosecutors don't just throw stuff out there and hope it sticks. They build their case meticulously, layer by layer. What Smith is doing now is like showing part of his cards. He's saying, hey, I've got direct evidence, I've got communications, I've got proof. And that's got to be daunting for Trump's team. Until now, their defense has revolved around creating doubt, insisting you can't prove he was directly involved or knew what was happening. However, if Smith has emails, memos with Trump's name on them, or verified communications that show Trump was involved in planning ways to overturn the election, their entire strategy just goes up in smoke. It's completely finished. Now, about those communications. According to various sources, the evidence includes emails exchanged between former White House aides and campaign operatives. These aren't just casual chats. These are detailed discussions and strategies focusing on how to contest election results in specific states. Trump's name pops up repeatedly, not just as someone who might have been aware of things, but as someone who was actively directing the efforts. That's the key difference, and that's why this is significant. Lahonik, the CNN legal analyst keeping tabs on this case, broke down what this evidence likely entails.
Ellie, explain why you foresaw this all along and what you think could have been done differently.
Well, Alex, Jack Smith was named special counsel in November of 2022. And so that gave him exactly 2 years to get this case all done before the 2024 election. Anyone who's ever practiced criminal law in federal court, as Michael and I have, knows there is no physical way that you can take a big complex case like this, get it thoroughly investigated, go through all the grand jury, get it indicted, go through over 10 million pages of discovery, deal with the immunity issue, which obviously was lingering out there, would have to go up to the Supreme Court and did, and get the case tried and get a verdict in a 2-year stretch. That is just not possible. So
normally, sharp lawyers spot these things early on. They have connections, catch wind of rumors, and anticipate the worst-case scenarios. But not this time. This suggests that Jack Smith either sealed this information tightly, or the evidence must be far more damaging than anyone anticipated, probably a bit of both. Then there's this telling quote from Politico. The evidence dropped overnight changes everything. We're scrambling to respond. Now, that's not the kind of lawyer language that screams we've got this under control. It sounds more like panic, like, oh no, how do we handle this? Whatever strategy they had in mind, and whatever arguments they were ready to present, they've got to toss it all out the window and start fresh. It's reminiscent of a defense attorney who suddenly realizes, halfway through a trial, that their client actually committed the crime. And not just that, a mountain of evidence is on the table. Now, the focus shifts to damage control instead of winning the case. That's exactly the position Trump's team finds themselves in now. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Andrew McCarthy, a conservative legal commentator, has been fairly balanced in his assessments regarding Trump's legal troubles. He's critiqued some situations while also defending Trump on a few points. However, when he appeared on Fox News and said, if these documents hold up, it will be nearly impossible for Trump's team to claim plausible deniability, that certainly raised eyebrows. That's a notable statement since McCarthy isn't just some anti-Trump figure. He's a conservative who speaks his mind. When he says that this evidence makes defending Trump nearly impossible, you know it carries weight. Nearly impossible. Those are pretty intense words. Now, let's break down what plausible deniability actually means. In legal terms, it refers to the ability to claim, I had no idea what was going on, or I wasn't involved in that. It's a way to create distance from potentially illegal actions, and it generally works as long as there's... Jack Smith is digging into some serious stuff here. If he's got emails with Trump's name on them, memos where Trump is giving orders, or any kind of verified communication showing Trump was fully aware of what was going on, then that whole idea of plausible deniability just flies out the window. You can't claim ignorance when there's an email from you discussing it. Now, let's put this in context because this isn't just happening out of the blue. For years, Trump has been juggling a whole mess of legal troubles, civil cases, criminal cases, state charges, and federal charges, and through all of this, his supporters have stayed rallying behind him, calling it political persecution or labeling it a witch hunt by the establishment. There's some truth to their claims. At times, it's felt like the charges against him have been politically motivated or a bit of a stretch. But here's where things get interesting. Jack Smith isn't just some local district attorney with a grudge. He's a special counsel who's been meticulously building this case over the years. And the evidence he's laying out isn't just a matter of maybe Trump knew or probably said something. It's concrete, documented, and verified. Now that changes the game entirely. That's why we're starting to see some cracks in Trump's support. They aren't massive, people aren't jumping ship entirely, but there's definitely some doubt creeping in. Even on social media, where his supporters typically make the most noise, you can sense a shift. Folks are starting to wonder if this is the real deal and whether his lawyers can really defend him in this situation. Those types of questions weren't on anyone's mind a year ago or even 6 months ago. Here's the bigger picture that seems to be flying under the radar. This isn't just about whether Trump might end up in jail or not. It's about setting a precedent for accountability. We're talking about whether a sitting or former president can face repercussions for trying to overturn elections. And that's significant. This has constitutional implications. If Trump manages to wiggle out of this, despite what seems like direct evidence, what message does that send to future presidents or candidates? It tells them they can operate without fear of consequences. Conversely, if he does end up convicted and faces serious legal ramifications, that changes the narrative entirely. You know, there's a lot going on with the whole Trump situation, and it's actually quite a shift in the GOP landscape. As it stands, Trump won't be running for another term, but even in his second term, his influence is massive. He's like the kingmaker, deciding who gets endorsements and who doesn't. So, if he ends up facing serious consequences from this case, be it politically or legally, it could really change everything for the Republican Party. It leaves us wondering who might step up to fill that leadership void. Those are some important questions the Republicans need to figure out quickly. Now let's talk about Jack Smith for a moment. It turns out he's not done yet. Reports say he has more evidence up his sleeve and has been pretty strategic about what he reveals and when. If what we've seen is enough to spark an emergency meeting and send everyone into a panic, just imagine what else he might have. That's keeping Trump's legal team awake at night. And honestly, it might be the most terrifying part of it all. If this is just the tip of the iceberg and Jack Smith has even more explosive evidence, Trump's lawyers are in for a real challenge. They're not just dealing with what's already known, they're facing the unknown too. That's a disastrous situation for any defense attorney to be in. All right, let's break down the key points because I know there's a lot of information to take in. First off, Jack Smith has obtained new evidence that directly connects Trump to the attempt to overturn the 2020 election.
Good evening. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail.
We're not talking about indirect links or possibilities. We're looking at solid proof with authenticated emails and internal memos exchanged between White House aides and campaign operatives. Legal experts who have analyzed this stuff say it's damaging, like really damaging. It makes it hard for Trump to argue that he was out of the loop or didn't know about the wrongdoings. That's a big deal because until now, his entire defense has been all about maintaining plausible deniability, claiming he didn't order any of the shady stuff or even know it was happening. If these communications prove otherwise, that defense crumbles. Second point, Trump's legal team is in full-on panic mode. They even had an emergency meeting to completely overhaul their approach. One source mentioned they're in a scramble to come up with a response. It's definitely a chaotic time for them. When your own legal team starts scrambling, that's usually a sign that things aren't looking good. It shows they didn't see certain issues coming, which likely means the evidence is more severe than they anticipated, and they don't seem to have a solid strategy to tackle it. This situation gets really interesting because Trump has had access to some of the best lawyers out there. However, even the finest lawyers can't defend against hard evidence. If Jack Smith has solid documents and verified communications, then the focus shifts from legal tactics to just managing the damage. And here's something worth mentioning. Even conservative legal experts are sounding the alarm. Andrew McCarthy, who has been relatively fair to Trump, recently appeared on Fox News and stated, if these documents hold up, it will be nearly impossible to defend against them. I mean, nearly impossible isn't just media hype. That's a seasoned conservative commentator looking at the facts and saying, this isn't good. This perspective is crucial because it's not only the left that believes Trump is in a tough spot. Folks on the right, even those who have defended him in the past and know the legal landscape well, are sounding cautious. When they express sentiments like nearly impossible to defend, that's something to pay attention to. Now let's talk about Trump's base. There are signs of cracks starting to appear. It's not widespread just yet, but some doubts are creeping in. You can see it on social media, with Trump supporters questioning whether his team can handle the current situation. Hashtags like Trump trial are trending, and let's just say the vibe is shifting. It's not as confident or as dismissive of the charges anymore, and that's significant. Trump's political strength has always stemmed from having an unwavering base, people who believed him without hesitation and dismissed any accusations as fake news. But when even a portion of that crowd starts to waver and questions his lawyers, that feels like a crack in the foundation. So, why does all this matter? Let's break it down. First off, this could be the case that finally sticks. Trump has weathered impeachments, in-depth investigations, and multiple criminal charges, but this federal election interference case, led by a meticulous prosecutor like Jack Smith, coupled with solid evidence, could change the game. This might be the situation that leads to real consequences. Secondly, it sets a precedent for presidential accountability. If Trump faces conviction, it sends a clear signal that no one is above the law. Presidents can't just operate outside the bounds of justice. This whole situation is really shaking things up. The evidence that Jack Smith just presented has flipped the script entirely, and it has Trump's legal team in a tailspin. It's wild to think about where this could lead. If Trump manages to come out of this unscathed, despite the direct evidence against him, it would send a message that presidents can pretty much do anything without facing the music. That's a scary thought. Now, the political landscape is changing too. While Trump can't run again, he still holds significant power over the Republican Party. He's backing candidates and his influence remains substantial. But if this case takes him down, whether through a conviction or political damage, the GOP will have to scramble to find a new leader. And that's going to be pretty messy. This party has revolved around one person for nearly a decade. So if he's out of the picture, it raises some big questions about what comes next. Looking ahead, there are a few things to keep an eye on. First, Trump's legal team is going to have to respond to this evidence. How they approach it will reveal a lot about how confident they are in their case. Will they challenge the evidence, argue it's out of context, or try to stall the process altogether? Their response will be telling. Second, expect more leaks from inside Trump's legal camp. With the chaos swirling around, there's no doubt more information is bound to slip out. When people start panicking and scrambling, that's when the real juicy details often emerge. Third, the polls are crucial to watch. Keep an eye on what Republican voters are thinking. Are those cracks in Trump's base widening or closing? Public opinion plays a big role. It can influence judges and politicians alike, and it will be a key factor in determining Trump's political clout moving forward. Lastly, don't take your eyes off Jack Smith. If the rumors are true, he has more evidence up his sleeve. He's been careful and strategic, and prosecutors like him usually hold back until they feel ready to reveal everything. So, more surprises could be on the horizon, which means more drama and more panic. All of this is pretty unbelievable, isn't it? I'm not here to predict whether Trump is bound for jail or if he's going to walk away free. Honestly, no one knows how this is going to play out, but one thing's for sure. Something significant just shifted in the game, and we're in for quite a ride. This situation isn't just another story in the news cycle. It feels like a real turning point. We're not just looking at ordinary developments here. There's something significant happening, and it's important to take notice rather than just scroll by thinking, oh, it's just another Trump story. This one stands out. The evidence is different, the response from Trump's team is unlike anything we've seen before, and the consequences could really shake things up. What we're witnessing is historical. It doesn't really matter whether Trump faces conviction or walks away free, whether his supporters stick with him or choose to leave, or if he manages to keep his political influence or loses it. All these questions are being played out right in front of us in real time. And let me tell you, Jack Smith isn't finished yet, not even close. The next few weeks promise to be nothing short of wild. Trust me, you'll want to keep an eye on what unfolds next. This has the potential to reshape American politics for years to come. It's a moment that could change what accountability looks like at the highest levels of power. We are all witnessing this, moment by moment and revelation by revelation. The stakes have never been higher, the evidence stronger, and the outcome more unpredictable.
Once again, patriotic Republicans refuse to capitulate on the sanctity of the presidency, unless it's their guy. This is just another day. As many of you know, there have been a few consistent talking points among Republicans over the last year. They say liberals are too woke, they say Democrats are too unwilling to negotiate, and a few Republicans even say some women are too old to date because they don't live at home with their parents anymore. But there is another talking point that's been even louder than the rest.
All those pardons that he gave to some very bad people, very unpatriotic people, very evil people, it looks to me like those pardons are worthless.
Did the president even know about these pardons?
The actions of President Biden simply were not all his own actions, and there are major implications to that, including all the pardons that he signed.
If it happened on my watch, I would be able to see it because the next day or sooner I'd be reading about something that I knew nothing about and who the hell signed this. So I almost never use the auto pen.
Trump hates the auto pen.